I'm Derek Rucker, and this is Adam Galinsky. We're professors at the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University, and we're here to tell you about some of our recent work.
So Derek and I have been collaborating over the last few years on how power affects the consumption process, and this really builds off a lot of work I've been doing over the past decade about how power transforms people's psychological states. And so we took my interest in power and Derek's expertise in consumption, and we started doing a program of research together.
Right, and so our very first paper that appeared in 2008 in the Journal of Consumer Research asked a very basic question. How does a state of power affect consumers' consumption habits? And what we find is that because low power is an aversive state, it produces a desire to escape that state, and one way to do this so is by acquiring status-related goods.
And what that study sort of implicitly suggests is that low-power people are buying these high-status goods to display towards others, which suggests that maybe it's altering how much attention they're putting or importance they're putting on themselves versus others. And so our next line of research really tried to tackle that question.
Right, so what we did in this line of research is we manipulate consumers' power by either having them recall a time they lacked or had power. Very simple manipulation. We then ask them to buy chocolates, and these chocolates are told that they'll either be for themselves or for another person of their choosing. And what we find is for chocolates, the number they take, if you're low power, you literally buy 3 times the amount for another person than if you're buying for yourself. If you're high power, you buy twice as much for yourself than for another person. So power literally changes how much you're willing to spend on yourself versus others.
So what we did in the follow-up studies is we wanted to rule out some alternative explanations that might be explaining our results. So one of the concerns would be, well, maybe power is altering mood, and we showed that mood didn't matter. And another study we said, well, maybe powerless people are buying more for others because they're trying to get them to reciprocate their generosity. But even when we control for that or prevent any reciprocation, we still get the exact same effect.
Right, so what we then decided to do is go back to our question and say, is it the fact that a state of high power really makes you feel more important and therefore you spend more on yourself than others? And a state of low power really makes you dependent on others, and so therefore you spend more on others than yourself. And so what we show is that these two different ideas, self-importance and dependence on others, statistically mediate the spending effects we see. Low power people spend more on others because they depend on others. High power people spend more on themselves because they view themselves as more important.
So what we wanted to do in our final studies ask the question of how generalizable are these effects. So we created real print advertisements. We manipulated power in those advertisements. Think about time when you felt powerful, or think about time when you felt powerless as the lead to the ad. We also manipulated the focus on self as the other. So it said, chocolates, a perfect gift for yourself. Or it said chocolates, a perfect gift for others, to give to someone else. And we found is that even though we manipulated power and the focus on self as other in these advertisements, we completely replicated our previous effects. The advertisements that emphasized power, people are more likely to spend when they also emphasize the self rather than others. But when the ad emphasized being in a powerless position, people spent more chocolates. They literally bought more chocolates when the advertisements emphasized others than themselves.